Good morning, Crosspoint Online and East End. I'm Kimberly.
And I'm Tina. How are you guys this morning? We're going to welcome a couple of our online viewers. Good morning, Sarah Swally and family.
Good morning, Tom and Gail Wise.
Good morning, Julia Brooks.
Good morning to Barbara.
And we are still looking for those watch parties that we have asked you all to start.
Yes.
Hint, hint. Today, the 13th, we are going to be Best Sunday Ever.
So it's our 10-year celebration.
We're going to have a couple locations. We're going to gather for about 30 minutes, do worship. We got Fleming County,
Mason County, Adam and Brown County,
Robertson and Bracken.
So they're saying at these pop-ups that you can either bring a lawn chair or sit in your car. What are you going to do?
I'm sitting in your back seat.
Driving Miss Daisy.
Yeah. Oh, and make sure you get on the app and sign up because we're going to be providing lunch. So we need to know about how many people to prepare food for.
Yeah. And the big thing that we're doing after the service is going to the nursing homes and trying to encourage them as well as the staff.
Yeah. No contact. We'll just
contact.
Seeing the residents outside their windows.
You got a song?
You put your left hand in, you put your left hand out, you put your left hand in, and you shake it all about. You do the hokey pokey. I really had to be choosy because if I sing one of Eli's songs, they might cut him.
Yeah, we don't want to cut Eli.
No.
He's a star up there on the stage.
Joke?
Joke. Don't have time for a joke.
Guys, have a good week. Hope to see you Sunday.
Everyone. My name is Rachel, and we are so happy to have you here today. Also, welcome online viewers in East End campus. So, if you didn't know, next Sunday we are celebrating our 10-year anniversary. That's 10 whole years of being for everyone in our community. And to celebrate, we are going to be having an outdoor service. So the service is going to be in 4 different locations: Robertson, Bracken, Mason, Lewis, and Fleming. And you can drive up, bring a chair, or you can just stay in your car. But don't worry, everything's going to be socially distant. And after the service, we are going to be serving the elderly in our community. So if you would like to sign up, please sign up on our app so that we know. We're going to have food, so we want to make sure that we can provide for everyone who's coming. So we're going to give you just a few seconds to do so now if you would like. And I'm supposed to insert a joke, but I'm not very good at those, so. All right, so Chad is bringing our message today, and before so, let's stand up and worship.
Search the world, but it couldn't fill me. Man's empty praise this morning. I'm not afraid. I'm not afraid to show you my weakness, my failures and flaws. Lord, you've seen them all, and you still call me friend. 'Cause the God of the mountain is the God of the valley, and there's not a place your mercy and grace won't find me again. Oh, there's nothing better than you. There's nothing better than you. There's nothing. Nothing is better than you. There's nothing better than you. There's nothing better than you. There's nothing is better than you. You turn mourning to dancing. You give beauty for ashes. You turn shame into glory. You're the only one who can. You turn mourning to dancing. You give beauty for ashes. You turn shame into glory. You're the only one who can. You turn graves into gardens. You turn bones into armies. You turn seas into highways. You're the only one who can. You're the only one who can. Oh, there's nothing better than you. There's nothing better than you. There's nothing. Nothing is better than you. There's nothing better than you. There's nothing better than you. There's nothing. Nothing is better than you. You turn graves into gardens. You turn bones into armies. You turn seas into highways. You're the only one who can. You turn graves into gardens. You turn bones into armies. You turn seas into highways. You're the only one who can. You're the only one who can. You're the only one who can. Amen. Let's lift up a clap of praise to celebrate Him here this morning. Amen. Sing this together this morning. We've seen what you can do. We've seen what you can do, oh God of wonders. Your power has no end. The things you've done before, in greater measure, make this our prayer for our city now. That God would come and awaken us in any strife, in any circumstance, and he'd wake our hearts. Let's sing this together. Come awaken your people. Come awaken the city. Oh God of revival, pour it out, pour it out. Every stronghold will crumble. I hear the chains hit the ground. Revival, pour it out, pour it out. Come awaken your people. Come awaken the city. God of revival, pour it out, pour it out. Every stronghold will crumble. I hear the chains hit the ground. Oh God of revival, pour it out, pour it out.
Heavenly Father, God, we thank you for the truth of that song. And Lord, your word tells us that if we, your people who you call by name, will humble ourselves and pray and turn from our wicked ways, that you will heal our land. And so, Lord, even now, together, as just one small part of your greater body called the church, online and in person in the East End right now, Lord, we say, God, forgive us. Forgive us on our side. We can't pray this prayer for the rest of the world, but for us, we can say, forgive us, Lord, where we let the dividing wall of hostility be built between us and anybody else. Whether it's someone in our family, someone we work with or go to school with, someone that's a different color skin, or thinks differently than we do politically. God, would you forgive us? Through that, would you begin to heal and move and work and pour out your spirit, just like that song says, until there is an awakening in our city and a revival in your church that shows the world that the answer that we've been looking for, the change that can happen, it comes through you, Jesus Christ. And may we, as your people, lead the way in that. And may our very lives and our love show people that change can happen because they see it in us. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. You may be seated. Well, I thank you very much for being with us today. And last week, I had the opportunity to go and be with Augusta, our Augusta campus. And man, it is so exciting to see faces there that I've never seen before. And if they keep growing the way they are going to have to open the balcony up and have people sit up there. So we celebrate with them over that. Yeah, you can celebrate that. That is awesome. And then in East End, I got to preach for the first time in person. And we had this opportunity just to kind of go around the table, and they shared their story. And then I got to share God's story. And it was really, really encouraging to see how God is taking lives that many others may have just written off, but through River Outreach, through the East End campus and what God is doing in those entities, you're seeing people have new hope and people being restored to families and restored to friendships and restored to life. And so we celebrate what God is doing in East End. And let's let them hear it. They can hear us today, so let's let them hear it. So it's Labor Day weekend, of course, and during these weekends, I like to travel. And so for some reason, holiday weekends always make me think of, where would I like to go? You know, I wonder, if you could go anywhere right now and coronavirus isn't a thing, you could just go anywhere, you had all the money you needed, and you just said go. The place I would pick today is Colorado. I just think Colorado is absolutely beautiful. I've been there maybe 3 or 4 times. Just think it's gorgeous. The crisp, clear air, the Rocky Mountains, just everything. It has more sunshine. I don't know if this is true or not, but last time I flew there, the pilot said that there's more consecutive days in sunshine in Colorado than any other state. I don't know if that's true or not, but I wanted to believe it, and it seems like every time I've been there, there's been sunshine. I just think it's beautiful. There's only one thing that I do not like about Colorado. You know what that is? Kansas. To get to Colorado, the most direct route to drive there is through Kansas. And Kansas is, no offense, but it is, I'm not gonna offend you guys, what do I care? Kansas is just miles and miles of nothing, like flat nothing. At least here we have hills, you know? Nothing, not even little rest stops, not restrooms, not stores, not restaurants, nothing. There's just miles and miles of nothing. And when I was younger, my goal was just drive as fast as you can, because you can drive faster there. That's one nice thing. You can just get as fast as you can through Kansas so you can get to the beauty. But now I am at an age where things have changed in me. And I drive through a place like Kansas, and all of a sudden I have a little bit of anxiety produced in me, because the moment I see that there's miles and miles of nothing and no place to stop, I've got to go, right? There's a part of me in my body now that is in charge of me in a way that I hate to admit, but when it says it's time to go, you can't drive miles and miles through Kansas and not need to. My own son now, who I used to criticize for how many times he had to stop to go to the bathroom when he was little, now says to me, "Dear God, Dad, you have to go again." I'm like, I know. And so Kansas is a nightmare for me, because there's miles and miles and miles of no human civilization, just nothing. And the reason I share that today is because when the Bible talks about this idea of wilderness and it talks about deserts, it has in mind not necessarily something that that you would learn in school about what a desert is. It has in mind this idea of miles and miles of nothing and no one, and you being alone there. And so when it talks about wilderness, when it talks about desert, often in the English translation, it will say words like this: it was a solitary place. But you look at the Greek word and it says desert. It was a lonely place. But you look at the word and it says desert. It means deserted. It means desolate. It means in those moments when you need someone the most, no one is there. And sometimes it even feels as though God is not there. And Jesus is in one of those places in Mark chapter 1, verse 35. It says, very early in the morning, while it was still dark, Jesus got up, left the house, and went off to a solitary place, a desert place where he prayed. This reminds us that sometimes a desert solitary place, a wilderness place, is a welcome respite. You know, Jesus wanted to be alone sometimes, and you see this pattern in his life where he was always getting off and being by himself, not so he could be in isolation, but so he could be in the presence of the Father without distraction. And so sometimes it's welcome. I think of some of our parents who are working from home right now and trying to do virtual learning with their children who are young. Like we got off lucky through this because our kids are an age where they don't need as much hands-on. But for some of you, I was talking to one set of parents, and they're like, their little one is in kindergarten and their other little ones are too little for any of that. And they're trying to manage and keep it. And I'm sure they would be like, please take me to the desert lonely place. right? Just get me out of here right now. Just give me just a few moments being alone. And so sometimes we welcome these places. That's what Jesus did. But of course, even if you welcome it, they're usually short-lived. And so that's what happens next. Simon and his companions went to look for him, like a child looking for their parent. Mommy, Daddy, where are you? And when they found him, they exclaimed, everyone is looking for you. Jesus replied, let us go somewhere else to the nearby villages so I can preach there also. And it's almost like he's reminding himself of this. That is why I come. I mean, I can't stay here in this quiet, refreshing place in the Spirit of God because I've got a work to do. I have a mission. I have to preach about that new heaven on earth that's coming, this power systems of this world being turned upside down, and the salvation that is real for now and for eternity. And so he says, let me go and preach. And so he traveled throughout Galilee, verse 39 says, preaching in the synagogues and driving out demons. And then a man with leprosy came to him. And as soon as we hear that word leprosy, we're reminded of the other side of the desert, wilderness, lonely places. Sometimes we want to go there just to get away and be refreshed. And then there's other times that we're there and we don't want to be there. And we wish we could get out of there. But the circumstances we're in make it so it seems like we'll never connect again. We'll always be alone. And that's what this man was experiencing through this skin disease called leprosy. And in fact, the law told him how he had to live and act because of this disease. And in Leviticus chapter 13, verse 45 through 46, it explains it. It says, anyone with such a defiling disease must wear torn clothes, let the hair be unkept, cover the lower part of their face, sounds familiar, doesn't it? And cry out, unclean, unclean. And as long as they have the disease, they remain unclean. They must live alone. They must live outside the camp. And so when this man walks up with leprosy, his hair is unkept, his clothes are torn, he has his face covering on, and everybody knows, it's like a billboard he's wearing. Everybody knows he's unclean, and they're wondering why he's where he shouldn't be. But it makes me wonder, how long had it been like that for him? Wouldn't you like to know the rest of the story, sometimes that the Bible tells us? Wouldn't you like to know the backstory? Like, when did it start for him? When did he start to feel a little tingling in his hands and feet? A little bit of numbness. When did he start to notice that his skin was irritated and then it was starting to decay? And how long did he go trying to hide it? How long did he go keeping his hands in his pockets so no one would see? How long did he go until finally he couldn't hide it even from his family anymore? How long did he have to try to convince his wife, no, I've got to go to the priest. This is how we do things. I've got to go for the sake of you and the kids. If anybody finds out about this, that I haven't reported it. And so he finally makes his way to the priest, and the priest says, yes, you are definitely unclean, but let's give it 7 days. And that's what Leviticus said you had to do. We'll quarantine you and we'll see how it turns out. And 7 days later, he goes back to the priest, and the priest says the words that he dreads the most, unclean. And that word meant you now have to be forced to live in this desert, lonely place. How long had it been since he got on the floor with his kids and played and hugged them and tucked them in at night? How long had it been since he sat around a table with family and friends and ate and laughed and reminisced? How long had it been since he felt the lips of his wife pressed against his? How long had it been since he'd even felt somebody else's shoulders brush against him in the midst of a crowd? How long had it been for him? How long had it been he'd been able to really have a conversation with someone other than yelling unclean and then watch everyone run? How long had it been since he'd been close enough to someone to actually be able to see their facial expression? How long had it been for him? We don't know how long had it been. But it makes me wonder, how long has it been for some of you? How long has it been for some of those who are watching online or in East End? How long has it been for someone you love, someone you care about, someone you live next door to and you may not even know that well? How long has it been for others? Maybe it's been about as long as this virus has been going on and changing everything. For some of you who are watching online right now, I know why you're not here, and you don't have to apologize for it anymore. You've said it's because I'm vulnerable to this disease, or someone I love a lot is vulnerable to this disease, and so I watch online. And I want you to know you don't have to apologize to me anymore, because you're still engaged, you're still worshiping with us. But I know also that I've heard many of those who are online say how lonely they're beginning to feel, how isolated, how disconnected. How many times I've heard people say online is great, but it's just not the same. And I think it's because we were made for this sense of community and people are feeling it. I wonder about our students going back to school, how long? I wonder, last year they thought, well, this will be over this last year, and the new year will bring a new beginning, and we'll have fans in the stands, and we'll have dances, and we'll have all the things you're supposed to have in school that make school fun besides just the schoolwork. And now many of them don't have that. And then I think about other students in our schools who are probably glad they don't. Because sometimes the most lonely place to be is surrounded by others and feeling all alone. Have you ever been there? Have everybody around you, maybe have a house full of people, and yet you feel completely alone. I don't know. Sometimes I think that feels more lonely than the desert lonely places. How long has it been for you? Maybe you say, since I stood at the graveside and my heart broke. How long has it been for you? Since she told me she no longer loved me and she left. How long has it been for you? Since the kids grew up and our nest became empty. How long has it been for you? Since I retired and I don't know what to do with myself. How long has it been for you? Since the conflict in our family tore us apart. How long has it been for you? Since I came clean with my habits, hurts, and hang-ups, and I lost a whole group of friends that I can't be with anymore, and a whole group of friends who I thought would support me don't know what to do clean. How long has it been for you? We don't know how long it had been for this man, but we know it had been long enough that he had made up his mind that he couldn't live like this another day. You ever gotten that point? Not that you want to die, hopefully not, maybe so. But you just get so sick and tired of the same old thing over and over again, and that same feeling of isolation and desert loneliness that you're like, I would do anything. If this could change, I would do anything not to live like this another day. And that's the point that this man came to. We know it because of what he does. He walks where he's not allowed to walk. He goes where he's not allowed to go. He makes up his mind, I know I'm going to break the law. I know they may punish me. I know they may arrest me. I know they may kill me. I don't know what they're going to do when somebody like me breaks a law like this. But I would rather take my chances trying to see if something could change than to stay in this desert, lonely place even one more day. Can I say to you that you know you're ready to change? You know you're ready for something better. You know you're ready for something good that God has for you. When you become so sick and tired of living in the desert, lonely place that has bound you and keeps you in bondage, that you're willing to do anything, risk anything at the possibility of change. When you're more determined to see change than you are afraid of what it's going to take to change, then you're ready for something new. This man was ready for something new. He was ready to risk everything. And so can you imagine it? He gets close enough to people, closer than he's been perhaps for years. And he knows he should be saying the words unclean, unclean, but that kind of defeats the purpose of what he's trying to do. He's trying to meet this Jesus, not get this Jesus to run away from him. And so he says nothing. And before long, he can hear whispers. He hasn't been able to hear whispers of people forever. He can now see the facial expressions of people, and they're not happy to see him there. But he can see them for the first time in all these years. He can see them. He's close enough to people. He can see them. He can hear them. And then you imagine they would start to shout for him, unclean, unclean. And they would social distance themselves completely away from him. Unclean, they've said. But there was one person who didn't run when everybody else ran. There was Jesus standing there. And the man comes face to face with Jesus, and he says these words, if you are willing, you can make me clean. I am so glad he prayed that prayer. Because I'll be honest with you, often that's my prayer. I know he can. Anybody else with me? I mean, I believe that. I do. I've seen him do amazing things in people's lives. I know he can. But the question is, will he? That's the question was on his mind. And then we turn to see what Jesus' reaction will be. And in verse 41, it gets a little muddy. It says, Jesus was indignant. Now, if you brought your own Bible, or if you're reading them from the app, then you'll see other versions of the Bible say Jesus was moved with compassion. In fact, I have two different NIV, New International Version Bibles, printed at different dates, and this one says indignant, and my old one says moved with compassion. Like, what is going on? Apparently, Mark, when he was trying to describe to us Jesus' reaction to this desert, lonely man place and person, that Mark used a word that was a little confusing. He used a word that you couldn't tell if Jesus was indignant and irritated and a little bit ticked off at all of this happening, or if he was compassionate. But maybe the answer is not either or, maybe it's both. I mean, can you really be moved to compassion if something doesn't start to tick you off a little bit? You know what I mean? Like when you see the evil in the world, don't you think that Jesus, he saw the evil, he saw the isolation, he saw this disease and what it was doing to him. He saw how hell was working in the world in all these even ways that the man didn't even deserve. And he saw it, and there was something inside of him that just was like, you know what, that's not right. This isn't okay. And it irritated him and it made him indignant, not at the man, but at the situation. When God sees us in our desperate, lonely places, he doesn't get mad at us. He's mad at this evil in this world that holds us down and wants to drive us off into the margins of the world where we feel like we don't matter to anyone. And so it ticks him off. But he doesn't stop there. He's moved to compassion. Because if he was just ticked off, he would just storm off. But instead, he turns to the man and he offers him some compassion. I was to say to you, it's a message to us. Can we really say we love the world if the evil of this world doesn't tick us off a little bit? And can you really say that you care about people who are modern day slaves and human trafficking? Have you read reports lately how many people have been found in Michigan and in other states? Recently, law enforcement has been kind of doing this crackdown, and they're uncovering and setting free minors who have been caught up in human trafficking. And we say, praise God, and we want to show compassion to those children as we should. But isn't there a part of you that just gets a little mad and says, what is going on that people think it's right to buy and sell people? That ought to tick us off. I mean, when you hear about police officers being murdered and injured for the sins of somebody else, I mean, that should tick us off and say, hey, there has to be a better way to make our point. There has to be a better way than hurting people who didn't hurt you. There has to be a better way. When we hear of racial injustice and inequality, man, we shouldn't just be able to gloss over it. We shouldn't just be able to say, well, that's not my experience, so it doesn't matter, or everybody matters, and so we don't have to deal with it. No, as the church, as God's people, we should say, hey, that ticks us off because that ticks God's off, because everyone's made in the image of God, and we have no right to treat anyone less than. That ought to tick us off. But then God says, and let that anger be turned to compassion for the one who's being held down, for the one who's being oppressed, for the one who's being taken from, for the one who's being pushed away into the desert, lonely place. And so Jesus does something next that is incredible, but entirely unnecessary. Listen to what he does. He reached out his hand and he touched the man. I am willing, he said, be clean. It was completely unnecessary. There's other accounts in the Bible where Jesus healed people from afar. He just said the word. He wasn't even near the person in one account, said the word. And from miles and miles away, the person was healed. Jesus didn't have to do this. Why would Jesus do it? You realize what Jesus did when he touched that man who was unclean? He became unclean. He became ceremonially unclean. He became dirty. He put himself in a position that if he didn't go get cleaned up ceremonially, he wouldn't be able to worship in the temple, and he's God. Think about that. He risked everything. No wonder the religious killed Jesus. He was always breaking their laws for the sake of someone else who was pushed aside to know that God would touch them where they were. And so he touches them. And he does this incredible thing. He's not just healing this man of a disease. He's bringing him back. He's making sure everybody knows this man's clean. Bring him back to his family. Let him back in. Embrace him. He belongs. Don't cast him aside. Let him come back. And he's restoring this man from the desert, lonely place with one simple, unnecessary, but powerful touch. You see, Jesus wasn't just indignant. People can get mad over what's wrong in the world and be very noble. Jesus wasn't just compassionate. People can have a lot of pity and empathy and sympathy. But if it never moves past that, it's a waste of time, right? It's a waste of emotional energy. I'm kind of like that sometimes. I watch the news sometimes and I'm like, man, that makes me mad. And then I watch the news and after I get mad, I'm like, man, I feel so bad for this person or this group of people. And then what do? I'll tell you what I do. I change the channel. Stop thinking about it. Do nothing. Go on my way. Sometimes I say, oh God, thank you, I don't have to deal with that. As though somehow that makes it better. But Jesus says, if you want to be like me, if you want to be my follower, then let your indignation and let your compassion move you past convenience and comfort and touch someone else in the deadly, lonely place. In fact, I would suggest to you, you are never more like Jesus than when you do that. You are never more like Jesus than when our anger and our compassion over the evil of this world moves us past comfort, moves us past convenience to touch someone else in their desert, lonely place. You want to be like Jesus? Friends, I'm so glad you're here. I'm so glad you're worshiping online, but Sunday worship isn't where you become like Jesus. It's where you praise Jesus, but it's not where you become Jesus. You know where you become Jesus? You become Jesus out in the world where you see the wrong and you see the broken and you see the hurting and you see the shoved aside and you, through the name of Jesus Christ, you reach out your hand and you touch people where no one else will touch them. You touch them in their desert, lonely place. You touch the one that everyone else said it doesn't deserve it. Jesus touched the untouchable. He forgave the unforgivable. He loved the unlovable. He stood up for the ones that no one else would stand up for. And if we are going to be like him, then we've got to be moved past anger, move past compassion, and we have to step outside comfort and convenience and say, let me be the one who touches somebody who feels like everybody has cast them aside. Amen? You're never more like Jesus than when you are doing that. At the end of the day, I hope if I'm guilty of something, and I'm guilty of lots of things, that God will say to me, because sometimes people accuse us of this as a church, well, you're too loving. You just can't, you're too loving. I hope one day, wouldn't it be great to stand before God and say, God says, you know what? The problem with you all is you were too loving. Oh, whew, thank God. There's so many other things he could have named, right? You say, well, what's one touch going to do? I tell you what, it meant a whole lot to that man and to that family and to those friends. And that's the thing about one touch from God. It has this ripple effect that when one life is touched and changed, it spills out into those around them. And then it spills out to somebody else. And then it spreads out to somebody else. And you're never more like Jesus than when you're moved out of comfort and convenience to touch someone else in their desert, lonely place. Who is that in your life? That's the question we've been asking as a church, for 10 years. Long before I ever got here, you all, the founding pastor, Kevin Jack, and those who helped start this church, you all have been bent on this. Like you were willing to sacrifice a lot of things, but you would not sacrifice this. We're going to be a church that is for everyone. And honestly, even since I've been here, that's messy sometimes because everyone is everyone or it's no one that we're not comfortable with. And sometimes the everyone is somebody that I don't even like, or maybe you don't like. And sometimes the everyone is an enemy and someone who's trying to persecute us, but everyone means everyone. And for 10 years, Crosspoint Church, you have been willing to do whatever it takes, even if it means changing things up as a church to touch other people so they know God is for them and can be invited out of the lonely desert places. And I thank God for that. And now we're trying to look into the next 10 years and imagine what God might want to do with us. Can I tell you something? At this 10-year mark, it's kind of a critical time because we are now an established church. And if you want to see me kind of twitch and get nervous, it's around established churches. They freak me out. You know why? Because if we're not careful, for instance, I'll just be real honest. I know this is on video, and if those people shouldn't be watching anyhow, but the church I was at for a year and a half, okay? They're an established church. They're getting ready to celebrate 100 years. They asked me to make a little video. So I sent my little video, 100 years. You know why I was there for only for a year and a half? It's because that church became inward focused. And that church was only for people that looked and talked and acted like them and thought like them. You with me? And if we're not careful, we will become more concerned in the next 10 years about what we want and what we like and what we need as Christians, and forget the fact that the reason we're here is to be for everyone. That's the last thing we want to have happen, right? And so as we started planning for this 10-year celebration, we said, the first thing we thought, this is what I thought too, is like, you know what? Screw the whole coronavirus thing. Let's have the biggest church, best Sunday ever services ever. Maybe I'll get to meet Andy. You know, I mean, let's just do it big. Let's just do it big and forget it all. Let's just do that. And then we got to thinking, even if we could do that right now, we don't want to do that. That's not how we want to start our next 10 years. You know why? Because what happens in this room, that's not where we become like Jesus. What's what happens when you all leave this place, where we become the real church of Jesus Christ. And so we said, let's have worship services in representing the 7 different counties that we represent primarily. And so we're going to have a Aberdeen service, a service in Aberdeen at Riverfront Park for Adams and Brown County. And they're going to come together and worship. And we're going to have a Mason County one in U.S. Bank parking lot downtown. And we're going to have a Lewis and Fleming's going to meet in Tollsboro. And then we're going to have at Tollsboro Elementary School. And then Bracken and Robertson is going to meet at Germantown Park and come together. And we're going to have this 30-minute worship service. And then we're going to have a lunch together, individually wrapped so everything's clean and safe. And then you can sit in your car, or you can sit in a lawn chair. And then we're going to go out into the place where right now some of the loneliness people are. And that's what Amanda Grooms talks about in this video. Watch.
I am the long-term care ombudsman for the Buffalo Trace District. Basically, that means that I work as an advocate for residents in the nursing home. And I cover Mason, Lewis, Bracken, Fleming, and Robertson counties. And there are approximately 400 residents within those 5 counties, those 5 facilities.
So let's talk. I mean, the big word with nursing care facilities right now is the pandemic. But let's start pre-pandemic. In your role and what you saw in those counties that you listed with those 400 residents, what are some things that you think maybe just the general public like me don't know, aren't aware of the need?
Yeah, so a number that always stands out to me and those in my program is 60% of nursing home residents receive no visitors outside of the ombudsman program. Wow. That was a number that we have always kept our eye on, that we've always been concerned about. Now, with COVID, not having any of those eyes and ears in there, it's even more alarming.
So, Amanda, what is it like then? You know, we hear about in the news how COVID is affecting nursing homes and families not being able to visit and residents feeling isolated and being isolated for their own health and protection. But from someone who's seeing it from the ground, front lines, what does that look like? What do we not get from the news that you would like us to hear or see?
Sure. So COVID has had an impact on every one of us, and it's been particularly hard for the men and women in the nursing home. What most people might not realize is that nursing homes closed their doors to the public on March 15th. So for 5 months, those in the nursing home have not been able to visit with their loved ones. At that same time, facilities suspended communal dining as well as group activities. So not only have residents been isolated from families, they've also really been isolated from each other as well.
And I mean, and try to paint a picture for that as the resident in the nursing home, especially the ones who really count on you and your office to make sure someone visits them. Mm-hmm. What are they feeling right now?
You know, as the weeks go on, as the months go on, the tone of their voice changes. Mm-hmm. My conversations with residents change. My conversations with families change. Mm-hmm. I can hear the hopelessness almost in their voice. I have conversations on a daily basis with family members that are terrified that they will never see their loved one again. And then vice versa, I have the residents express those same concerns.
And you have been a part of helping us be able, and I thank you for that, for September 13th, our 10th year anniversary as a church, when we reached out to the partners and says, anybody have an idea of how, instead of being a church that says on our 10th, everybody come to us and celebrate, we think the best way we can celebrate is leave here and go and do something in our community to show others that we're for them. And more than one partner said, let's think of our elderly at this time, which I was really and so let's talk about just that day, and let's talk about beyond that day. But first of all, let's talk about the day. Why would you say to someone in our church, make some time and do this? Why is this important for that day?
It's so important. It's always been important, and I thank you so much, and I'm so appreciative for the focus right now on this population, because it's so needed.
But then I also want to bring up that what we hope comes out of this is that there's some folks in our church family that would say, I really have a heart for this and that age group and this need. What could they do past that?
Sure. So if anyone, feels led that they would like to volunteer with this population, they are more than welcome to volunteer with the Ombudsman program. Our volunteers are known as friendly visitors. Pre-COVID, they are the eyes and ears in the facility, building rapport and having conversations with residents when I can't be 5 places at once.
Right.
But right now, we are still trying to keep them engaged by, we have a pen pal program where we link a volunteer or a friendly visitor with a nursing home resident, and they exchange cards and letters back and forth. And I've already received phone calls from residents thanking me for sharing their name. This is something that they look forward to once a week. It gives them hope.
That's cool. Wouldn't it be great if on September 13th, we even had 50 people say, you know what, I'm going to start being a pen pal and see where it leads from there.
It would be amazing.
Yeah, so and if it's 100, if it was more than that, but even just 50 people, think of the impact that could make.
Truly
folks.
amazing,
Yeah.
yes.
Well, Amanda, I can't thank you enough for not only sharing today, but all that you have done already to be able to make this a possibility on September 13th, to be able to show the elderly of our communities that God is for them and we are too. So thank you. Thank you for your time and working with us.
Thank you so much.
So next Sunday, to celebrate 10 years of what God has done, and then to look into the future and pray and ask God to lead us for the next 10 years and more, we are inviting you to get on the app and sign up to go to the location that is in your county and be a light right there in that county. And then we're going to go to nursing homes. In Ohio, only one of the nursing homes was able to reply, and so we're going to go to Ohio Valley Manor in Georgetown. In Lewis, we're not able to go at this time. You know that we need to be praying for them as they are dealing with COVID-19 in their nursing home. And contrary to what we're seeing on Facebook, they have told us that really they're not at a point right now that they can receive anything but our prayers. And so we will pray for them, but then we were going to go to also a Robertson and Bracken nursing home and the one right here in Maysville. And what we're going to do is what the nursing homes have said to do. They said that what they would like us to do is to make as many encouragement cards as possible. We'll have all that available for you so that we can shower them with cards. They said they're going to be sharing, they hope to get enough to share them over the next month and just kind of keep giving new rounds of cards to them. And then we're going to pray over them. We're providing meals for the staff at all of the facilities. And then also, all but Robertson really want us to do a parade around the building. And they're going to have the nursing home residents up at the windows, and we're going to have signs the kids have made. And if you want to bring your children, if you want to bring a pet, you got a dog that can handle a crowd, bring it. You got a cat, a parrot, a fish, I don't know. Bring it. Bring in a little bowl. Let them see, because they're so tired of looking out the windows of their rooms and seeing the same old, that just a little bit of encouragement, just a little bit of laughter, just a little bit of joy could be the touch that God uses to let somebody know that they can be pulled out of that desert lonely place, even as for a moment, right? And so that's what we're doing. Sometimes the biggest thing we can do are the small things, because those small things can end up meaning the biggest thing to someone who has felt like the world has just shoved them into that desert lonely place and nobody cares. And so I encourage you to sign up. I encourage you to be involved. You say, I don't have the app. I don't know how to do that. Get one of those yes cards on your seat and put it in the giving boxes, and I will sign you up. Last week, just so you know, the campus that is leading the way in this right now is East End. Everyone in East End on their own signed up to be a part. Isn't that awesome? Isn't that incredible? And so if just those of you in this room, and people have said to me, Chad, with everything going on, I don't know how many, you're taking a risk here. How many people are going to be there? I'm like, here's the deal. If at the end of the day, we get 50 folks out of all of this, then I'll be okay with that in the sense of this, that those 50 people will be the one that God builds the next 10 years on. Because they're the ones who have been moved past just indignation and compassion and past comfort and convenience to say, I'll be the one who reaches out my hand and touches them. And we'll get to see what the ripple effect of what God will do with that. And so our prayer today is going to be through this song, our champion God who touched us in our need, that we might be the same. Would you stand and let's sing this song?
I've tried so hard to see it. Took me so long to believe it, that you choose someone like me to carry your victory. Perfection could never earn it. You give what we don't deserve it. You take the broken things and raise them to glory. You are my champion. Giants fall when you stand undefeated. Every battle you've won. I am who you say I am. You crown me with confidence. I am seated in the heavenly place, undefeated, with the one who has conquered it all. Now I can finally see it. You're teaching me how to receive it. So let all your striving cease. Oh, this is my victory. You are my champion. Giants fall when you stand undefeated. Every battle you've won. I am who you say I am. You crown me with confidence. I am seated in the heavenly place, undefeated, with the one who has conquered it all. Conquered it all. Sing this together when I lift my voice. When I lift my voice and shout, every wall comes crashing down. I have the authority Jesus has given me. When I open up my mouth, miracles start breaking out. I have the authority Jesus has given me. When I lift my voice and shout, every wall comes crashing down.
Thank you so much for joining us this morning. Don't forget that next week we are not meeting in this building. Mason County will be meeting in the U.S. Bank parking lot. Ushers will be around to dismiss you, and parents with kids can go on and exit. Thanks, and have a blessed week.